working on getting the shift lever built. I might end up buying a fancy one later on, but I've got some of this gas pipe, and that ought to work just fine for a shifter, I think. And then I'm just using a cheap Harbor Freight bender here, just a regular old pipe bender, pipe kinker, to bend it. And then I just use this piece of sheet metal to kind of work out what angle I want. And I made sure to check when the seat's in the forward position that I can still shift. Because if you want anybody that's shorter than you to drive your rig, make sure that the shifter still works in various seat positions. The top and bottom are the pieces that came with the shifter. So it came with a little shift knob adapter and this little Z bracket thing. So I don't need the Z bracket, but I've cut the other piece off that would basically mount a knob to this Z bracket, and then the Z bracket bolts to that. I had to take and drill out the holes on this side because the other side's threaded on the transmission, so I didn't need threads in this piece anymore. So this is just the top part of that. Bottom part I welded, tack welded it to there while I'm testing it out. And then once I decide on my shift knob location, I'll weld them. I had to crunch that a little bit or just fill it in with weld. It's not just a shifter, it doesn't have to be that strong. But so this is good, I think. So with that short throw, so it's in neutral there, and that's, I'm glad I went with the short throw, because with this longer shift lever, it would have really been a lot longer throws. So in let's see, we'll put it in that, and then that gives me plenty of room to slide my seat forward, and then still have just enough room to still shift. So I think that'll be fine. Height wise, feels pretty good, I think. I'm just going to kind of sit in here for a little bit and kind of play with it and make sure I'm comfortable before I finish this part of it. But so far I'm liking that, and it's just, like I said, it's just tacked on there, but I'm definitely okay with that. I think this is just 1/2-inch gas pipe, just the stuff you get at Home Depot. Nothing expensive or nothing fancy, but it's plenty for a shift lever, and the diameter feels good too. It feels like, you know, your fingers fit just right over it, because I'll probably get I'm going to use the stock one for the moment, but I'll end up with probably a white Hearst style, you know, classic style looking knob. I think that'll work, I think, pretty good. I decided to just crimp the pipe or smash it where the bolt goes into it. That gives me I don't have to fill in the gap with weld and have that walk around all over the place. That kind of sticks it in there and keeps it nice and straight as I go to weld around it. I think that'll be good. And the little pinch has no effect. I already put the knob on there and made sure it didn't feel weird. Anything being kind of pinched right there, and it doesn't. And I could always build that up with weld and grind it back down if I didn't like it. But I don't see that hindering anything. But it feels good in the truck. I did shorten it some more. I put it back in there and held the shift knob along the top, or on the shaft, kind of where it felt good when I was sitting in the driver's seat. And so this is what I think felt best. Got it all sanded down, ready for some paint. Did some deburring around the top, since that's where my hand's going to be riding. Didn't want any weird rough edges that were going to drive me nuts. And the bottom there, nothing fancy there, but no, I think that comes out pretty good. It's too bad chroming's so expensive. I could just have this chrome cheap and not have to buy one later on. Of course, I don't know if I'll end up doing that anyway. I think I've got some old Hammerite paint or something I can spray on here, make it look half decent. I gotta go dig through my paint pile and see what color I want to paint it. If I don't find something, I'll just leave it bare for now, but I'm liking the way that's turning out. I ended up not having the paint color that I wanted. I was just thinking like some Hammerite aluminum or something. I'm a little nervous to paint regular aluminum because it seems to kind of rub off over time, and I don't want to get that all over my pants, so I'm just leaving it bare steel for the moment. I might even just clear coat that and leave it like that or something, I don't know, but we'll go with that for now. That shift knob is ugly as can be. I need to get rid of that as soon as I can, but it'll work for now. But so here's how how it looks installed going through the gears here. So that's, as far as my leg goes, when I'm driving, it'll be about right there. So it's about, that's real comfortable for me. And I like the knob just being right above the seat, because it's a real, I mean, I can almost just sit here and leave, you know, rest my arm on that. It's a real comfortable position. But I like that a lot. That's all good. Nice throw. Again, I'm glad I went with a short throw shifter, because it would be pretty crappy having this long of a stick and having a regular throw. Not that that's a real long stick, but that feels comfortable. And I've adjusted the steering stops the shift stops here per what they were doing with the Hurst shifter, but that didn't seem right. I just put it, you know, in gear, and then just ran it up to the back of that where it just touches even when I'm pulling back on it. And then they say back a half a turn, but that seemed like a lot more than it needed. So I went with a quarter turn, because a half turn, there was a huge gap there. So maybe the Hurst has a finer thread adjustment or something like that. So I don't really know if I need those positive stops anyway. This isn't a drag car, so I'll just leave it like that for now. I can come back and dink with it some other time. But this feels so much better than that stock S10 shifter. Well, it feels so much better than this factory Mustang shifter did. In fact, that throw right there, boy, that don't seem much longer than when it was in the Mustang with the stock shifter. With that short one, it had a pretty long throw to it. It was probably shorter than that, but anyway, I think that looks good for now. I'm happy with that. Got the shifter back out. After putting it in and kind of working through the gears a little bit, messing around with the shift stops and stuff, it was developing a lot of wiggle, or not a lot, but enough to, you know, it just kind of wanted to kind of fulcrum on that. I couldn't get those screws tight enough to stop it. There's no splines or anything on this mating surface to keep that from wanting to kind of wiggle loose, and the holes just have enough tolerance to let that shifter just have a little bit of wobble to it. So what I've done is I've added some tabs to this, that way there's no more wiggle room in this. And I just put this on the shifter, that way if I ever put another shifter on, and I don't know, you know, what'll end up there, so I hate to make this mod to the shifter tower itself. So on the lever we did that. So I'll clean it up, round all the corners off, so when I put a boot on there it doesn't cut the boot up. But that's my quick fix for that. I don't know what else a guy could do. I don't want to weld it on there. I can't imagine you could put anything on there that would allow that to bite, you know, epoxy Loctite, which I wouldn't want to do that anyway, because you want to be able to take it off. But these really should have some kind of spline on there to bite into the other side and kind of lock in. I've seen the fancier shifters, but you know, for a $40 shift tower or piece, I don't expect much. But on a short shifter, this probably wouldn't be an issue, but because I've got so much leverage here, it really amplifies the torque on that pivot point. So I think this will fix that up well enough. Got the shifter back in with my new modification to keep this from getting wiggly over time. So that I've been pushing on it pretty hard. It's not wiggling now, so I think that'll be good. I also changed these bolts here, the mounting shift tower mounting bolts, from the hex heads, the style that were on there. That's terrible lighting. Anyway, I got some that are a little bit longer because the base of this tower here is thicker. So I got some that are 1/4 inch longer than the factory ones. And then I got one that was, I think, about a 1/2 inch longer back here, because on this hole, the threads were stripped out at the top. So I got a couple different lengths that would, and that one just pretty much bottoms out in that thread there. So that'll fix that issue. I can kind of see how this came out. So it looks fine. That's going to be covered by boots. There's a lower boot that goes on this piece for to keep the dirt out of here, and then there's another boot that goes on the floor pan to keep the air and stuff coming in the cab. Kind of having issues finding that shift boot. Some places I'm kind of listed for the Mustang, but they're expensive. I found one, and I think it's an Omix part number for a Jeep CJ with a T5. So others had mentioned that boot fit on their Mustang. It's like a $5 or $6 boot. So I'm going to order that one and start there. I might end up taking these shift stops out if they don't play well with the boot. I'm not sure how the boot's going to fit with those on there. And I don't really have to have the shift stops. That's, you know, this isn't a race car. I'm not going to be slamming gears too hard. So I might just pull those out anyway. It feels so much better than the factory. It's not even funny anyway. So and all this stuff here that I dig, that's going to be covered up either by this boot or the other boot, so nobody will ever see that, because it doesn't look real pretty. But it's definitely helped my issue here, which I'm happy about. And then all this is going to have to come back off. I haven't sealed this yet. I've taken this off so many times I didn't want to commit to doing that until later on down the road. So I think that's working pretty good. So I was researching what other people are using for this dust boot that goes right on the shift tower, and a lot of them are not happy with the replacement stock style that's available. And I think I mentioned in an earlier video, I guess they're prone to tearing up not long after you put them on. So I don't know if that's installer problems or something, but I have used these CV boots for other projects on older D4 cats and D2 cats. This shift boot, the shift boot on those go bad, and it lets water into the transmission. So I've used this style on those successfully. So I thought, why not use them on this? So I looked up the measurements that I needed. I think it was 3.5 at the base. So I came up with this one, 614-001 from Dorman. The other ones I've used are Dorman, and they were fine. I've twisted and worked them on. They didn't split apart. They're pretty good and heavy. So I'm going to try to put that on here today and see how that fits. I'm still not sure about these, if I end up just taking these out because I don't really need them, or maybe they will fit without cutting into the boot or something. I don't know. I'll play with that here in a bit and see how that looks. But I think this should work just fine, and this should be concealed underneath the boot that's on the floor once the floor pans are reinstalled. So I think everything should be fine. And this is collapsible, and you could shove it clear down, or you could cut it to different heights or whatever too. Of course, if you cut from the top, you lose your center, but you could technically, this could be universal for several different sizes. So we'll give it a go here. The boot does not interact very well with the stops. These guys, you could puncture a hole in this and have them kind of poke out through that. I don't know how, if that would start splitting the boot or not. So I think that would work if a guy was determined to keep these with that boot. I just don't think I need these for. So I'm taking these out, and then I've also decided to fill these holes with just some silicone. So I just put some backing tape on there to keep it from blowing out the back. That way, if I change my mind later, I can just carve that silicone out of there and put them back in there. But this fits perfect on there, except for where it kind of gets flat right here. You can kind of see it's not perfectly round where they put the stops. So I was afraid there's this little tiny little bit of gap here when that boot's on there. I'd hate for dirt to kind of creep in and get into the housing from there. So I think with this, and then making sure this is on tight, these come with metal clamps for the CV boot, but installation. But I'll probably use zip ties on this one because it's not. I might need to get back in here at some point if I change my shift tower or something like that. So I'd hate to put it on here, but I still might. I'll look. I haven't quite decided yet, but I think a zip tie would wrap around these flat spots well and push that boot good and tight against there. But it does fit nice. But again, just because it's not completely round, it doesn't seal perfectly well there. But I think we'll be okay with that. So I'll wait for that stuff to dry, and then I'll finish putting that on there. Here's the boot once I got it installed. Just not enough room to put those adjusters in, I don't think. So or the positive stops, whatever they're called. So I did end up just using a really heavy duty zip tie down here instead of the metal ones that come with these boots for the cars. This would just be a pain in the butt to get off while it's in the truck if I need to remove this for any reason. So that'll be fine for a dust boot. The factory ones just come with these spring-loaded clips here, but this is too small to fit on this one, so we'll do this, and then another smaller zip tie up here. So that's nothing exciting, but that ought to work, and that should be all covered up once it's in the truck with the floor boot. So again, there's the number on that if you want to go that route. I'll get her installed back in the truck.